Okay, here we go. I'm going to pour the resin epoxy onto the pennies. I've been mixing for about 7 or 8 minutes. It says to mix for 12 minutes total, but it is hot out. So we've decreased the working time. Let's see if I can get a good focus on this thing. So, you mix a whole bunch. And I don't know if I mixed enough or not, but let's try it. We start in the middle. Basically, you just want to pour, and we do want to make sure that it goes over the edges, so we want to maybe this is just enough for one of them. Yeah. See, it's not dripping evenly around the edges, so I'm gonna have to. We might be able to actually just sort of scoop it up and paint it on the edges, since we don't need it to be perfect. And it will drip and move as it cures. Oh yeah, that's pretty good. Okay. Basically just scooping it up and painting it back on. Spreading it around to make sure it hits everything. We're going to get drips down the at the bottom. They're going to look like drips. They're going to harden in the end. We're going to basically just sand the bottom to flatten it all out. Okay, so we got the whole thing coated. I'm going to just pour all this right in the middle of this thing. It's not going to be enough. Actually, I might just do that. While I then bring this over. Paint the sides of this one. This is stretching it. We're just going to want to do enough. I was trying to just use only in what I needed to. If we do this again, we should just not be stingy. Oh, that penny is gone. Yeah, it always looks like such a waste when you use that much. But I can see that unless you pour a ton on, it doesn't coat the sides very well. This is why we do test pours. And yeah, hot temperatures means we get less working time. I'm just kind of pulling it towards the edge here. I didn't check to see if this table was level or if these blocks are level, and so they are most likely not. There's a little piece of glue or something in there. Made sure to get that out. And if you can see, I don't know if you can see, we got a bunch of bubbles forming in that other one, the first one I poured. We will get those out in just a minute. There's a trick to this stuff. Heat, and this is not necessarily true for all of these kind of pour-on epoxies. I was just talking to somebody who said that for theirs, they had to make sure they didn't apply heat, popping bubbles with a toothpick, basically, because the heat formed bubbles. Well, this one, it is the opposite. We use a heat gun to pop the bubbles as they form. So, let me go grab that. I'll be right back. I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. It was exactly as much as I needed, it looks like. Which is not the right way to do this. You want to use more than you need. I'm looking real close to see if there's any places that aren't covered, and it looks pretty good. I can see the super glue that I used to stick down the pennies. I figured it would kind of blend in with the epoxy, but that may not be the case. We may want to be careful not to have splooge out, whatever they call it, when we're gluing these down. The audio may suck now, sorry. But, did you see that? There's some bubbles right there. Boom, bubbles gone. So, I'll check back in a few minutes, keep popping bubbles, and I'll show you what they look like at the end. So. Realized that the perfect angle that I found was not so perfect, but you can see I just poured it. It's still drying. This is just seconds after I turned off the other video. And you can see it looks pretty good. The tops are nice and smooth. It did fill in all the gaps in between the pennies. I don't know how much of it's going to run off in the end. And how well it's going to fill in those gaps. I'm guessing it's going to be alright, but I'm guessing also that right there at the edges we may see some pennies sticking out. I don't know how well. It's pretty viscous stuff, but it may not be great. Okay, so here you see some bubbles there. I'm going to turn on the heat gun and show you how this works. See that? No more bubbles. And well, I mean, there's still a couple there. They're just coming. This stuff is heating up as we go, so you kind of want to stand here with the heat gun for, I don't know. I'll tell you when I'm done. Tell you how long we need to stand there and watch. So I'll keep popping bubbles and check back in soon. Thanks. Been popping bubbles for about 15 minutes now. And it's starting to get tacky. Let me see if I can focus. Man, I don't know how well I'm going to be able to show you this. But essentially, see that bubble right there on the edge? When it closes, it kind of slowly comes back together. See that? I mean, it's hard to see. Let me see if I can find another bubble. There's one there. There we go. That was pretty good. So that means we're getting close. It should be putting out fewer and fewer bubbles. And we shouldn't need to do this much more. You don't want to get it too hot. It actually accelerates the process. Sorry, I haven't been showing you anything because I've been focusing on what I was doing. Actually, so you can see I heated it up a lot and now we have a bunch of bubbles. So you don't want to do what I just did. What you want to do is you want to just use a little bit of heat, just sweep it across the top to pop the bubbles, and then put it away, because otherwise you make more bubbles. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I don't know if you can see. It's just pumping out bubbles right now. So, back in a few. Okay, it's been about half an hour, maybe an hour at the most, and I went to pop some bubbles and there weren't any bubbles left. Focus. So, it looks pretty good. Actually, it looks better than I thought, except for a few things like on the side here. See that? Yeah, I didn't have enough. Didn't get a good enough coat. So, then around this side, that's what happens when you don't use enough. I think some of these sides are going to be better than others. So we'll have to see. I'll get you some better lighting later on when they're all dry. So, but I would say you should hang out and keep popping bubbles, obviously, until there are not any bubbles left. And I would expect that would take between 30 minutes and an hour, depending on how hot it is. And maybe how humid, I don't know, but at least how hot it is. And it's about 90 degrees outside, and I'm working in the garage, so it's about 90 degrees in here. So it's been pretty hot today, and it all happened pretty fast. So I think it might last longer if it were closer to 70, and I wouldn't recommend doing it outside if it's really cold. Probably won't even work very well, would be my guess. Anyway, talk to you later. Okay, we're pouring again. We're doing a second coat because the first one didn't quite get the edges like I wanted it to, so I've got us a thicker coat. I gave it more working time. It's also later in the day, so it's not as hot. But this is warm. I can feel it in my hand. So I'm going to just start in the middle. But I want to make sure I get all the edges. I'm making sure to hit every side here. Make sure we get it all nicely coated. I'm not too worried about it being super thick in the top here, but you can see I'm going around every side, making sure it's nice and even. There were some lines I did not like last time on the outside. And I did glue my paper down to the table, or epoxy my paper down to the table. So maybe use a few layers of epoxy, of paper, or do it on a cloth on a table that you don't mind having to probably sand it off, at least scrape it in the end. Okay. It's a lot more even. I think we got the whole thing now. It's not beautiful, but in theory, it'll dry pretty well. So now we get to sit here and pop bubbles for a while. And maybe I can make the cleanup a little easier on myself. So, alright. Okay, we're finished. It's the next day. I put the 2 coatings on. The bottom here, as you can see, needs to be sanded down and cleaned up. Basically, you just drop it on a belt sander and it takes the bottom off, and then you can clean it up and put a little bit of finish on it if you want to, just to protect it so it doesn't get... It's still a little tacky. You can see it's stuck to the other. This is the same stuff. But anyway, I think it looks pretty good. There aren't any real bubbles I can see. The sides look pretty good. I'm trying to get everything in focus, but... There's a couple little things here that are slight imperfections. It did better on the side grain. The end grain on both sides was a little iffy, and I might have just messed up right there. See that little dark spot? Oh my gosh, sorry, I can't focus. I'll pull it further away, I suppose. I think I need to put this on the chair, because I think it's the light from that thing that's messing us up. There we go. That might be a little better. Anyway, the sides seem to turn out a little better. This one is also pretty good. The tops are very, very smooth. You can see they're not, the pennies aren't sticking up at all. It actually looks kind of cool from the side. See that? The light just kind of bends it up so it looks like the wood comes up in between the pennies, but of course it doesn't. I don't know, the choices between the two, I think I like this one, but of course Nathan said he liked that one better, so as far as the design goes, is which one is which. And I had the benefit of being able to just cut these to exactly the size of the pennies, but with the table you won't have so much adjustment. So anyway, that's how you do it. 2 things, really careful. You can see right there, that is the super glue that I used to glue down the pennies with. You can see it comes, you can see it very clearly from through the the clear top. So don't have any splooge out. If it does, pick the pennies up and wipe it off and try again. I used all the clean ones for this one. I mean, most of the clean ones. I think it looks better with the clean ones, but of course if you did it interspersed over a large area, that would also look cool because you see all the variation. So anyway, any questions? Let me know. Thanks.